1 AM. Interesting. Okay. Hey Ma, how are you? Hello, Rara. We're going to give everyone just a minute or two to show up, and then we'll get started. So we need to finish off the paper 3, and I've also got a bunch of questions that you guys submitted over the last week. I think there's about 4 of them. That should be fun. Perfect. Hey, Ice Cream. And yeah, I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for asking. Second day back at school. Is it too late to send? No, it's not. You can send another question if you want. Do you have the email? Okay, yeah, we'll give everyone just a minute or two to turn up. Okay, cool. Yeah, you can send in another email. Yeah, that's all right. As long as it's not too tricky anyway. Got 9 in your physics test. Nice work. Nice work. Do I do further maths? Wait, me personally or? I have taught further maths before. And I teach A-level maths, so further GCSE maths is also like cut in there. I haven't taught further GCSE maths for a while though, to be honest. But I have taught it. Okay, I think we can get started. Okay. So you guys submitted a few questions in over the last week, so we'll go through those and then we'll finish off the paper 3. Is it hard? GCSE further maths, it's a good bridge between GCSE and A-level maths. So if you're going to do A-level maths, it won't be any harder than that, right? So yeah. We'll start with these questions and then we'll move swiftly on to finish off the paper. So we have a few here. So, by the way, these are from the AQA 2022 paper, which, yeah, I didn't have access to because it was over half term. So it says a first day test has 2 parts, a theory and a practical test. The probability of passing the theory is 0.75 and the probability of passing only one of them is 0.36. The 2 events are independent. So with the word independent, what that means is they don't rely on one another. So the probability of one event doesn't change based on whether the other event happens, okay? So, what I would do here is I would actually draw out a probability tree, okay? So, if we start with the theory, and then we also have the practical. God, my handwriting's awful. Any tips for GCSE Maths when you don't know nothing and trying to get a 9? At this stage, I'd recommend doing a lot of like exam paper practice. I do have a video coming out on like how to study, and it has some like research papers that has gone into it, which is quite interesting. And I've also made like a study planner, so that video should come out soon, which should be kind of funky. But yeah, I would recommend doing as many past papers as possible and focusing on your weak points. If you're trying to get a 9, then try and find all the different types of questions that you can. Hey Zam. And then pass. Fail. And then again. Pass. Ignore the horrific handwriting. But it says the probability of passing the theory is 0.75, so I'm going to put 0.75 here. Now, oh, you meant physics. Yeah, doing exam papers is actually a pretty good way of doing it. Same way. With physics, you have to have a good understanding as well. So really try and like break down the topic in your mind, and also look up some videos that are kind of related to it. So by the way, if there's a 75% chance, a 0.75 chance of passing, then there must be a 0.25 chance of failing, right? Because you either pass or fail. And then it says the probability of passing only one of the 2 parts is 0.36. Yeah? So, what they're saying here is the probability of only passing one of them is 0.36. Okay, so I'm going to write that down over here. So, physics I got recommended not making dumb mistakes and getting good at maths. I mean, not making mistakes is kind of a bad piece of advice, right? Because you're going to make mistakes. So how do you know to do it in one probability tree, if that makes sense? When I tried the question, I did it in two separate trees. That's a good question. So how do you know when to do it if it's one or two? I normally always do it in one probability tree. And the reason for that is that it kind of shows me all of the combinations. So in this line here where it says the probability of only one of the two parts being 0.36, I know that I can see, if I do a combined tree, what the different combinations are, right? So if you only pass one of them, you either pass the theory and then fail the practical, or you fail the theory and pass the practical, right? Those are the only two options. And the reason why I can see that is because I've done a single probability tree. You know what I mean? I'm really done with mistakes. And that might be an issue with kind of confidence. So practice will help with that. And it also might be an issue of you trying to rush and being very nervous in exams. So if you try and slow down your thought process, it can help. So I don't know how much, what the probability of passing the practical is. So I'm just going to call it PF. Actually, no, instead of F, right? If the probability of passing the practical is P, then the probability of failing it will be 1 minus P, right? Does that make sense? So, the probability of passing then failing will be 0.75 times by 1 minus P. And then because I use the word or, I'm going to add the probability of failing, which is 0.25, and then passing, which is P. And that should equal 0.36. And now this is just an algebraic expression, right? So I can expand and simplify. So 0.75 times 1 is 0.75. If you send in a question, will I be able to do it? Yeah, I should be able to. By the way, Ma, I haven't received your question just yet. I don't know if you're in the picture. Equals 0.36. Like that. Collect like terms, so we have 0.75 minus 0.5p equals 0.36. I'm going to subtract 0.75 from both sides, so we can use a calculator, by the way, if you wanted to. Ignore that, I was doing some maths before. So just to be lazy, 0.39. So minus 0.5p equals minus 0.39. Divide both sides by 0.5, you get positive 0.78. Okay? Which is your answer for this question. Are there any questions about that at all? So leave that up for a second. Just take a second to digest it. Make sure it's all okay. What does independent mean? Yeah. So independent and conditional, yeah. So independent events are events that don't affect one another, right? So let's say I'm flipping a coin and rolling a dice, right? Now, if I get heads or tails on a coin, it doesn't affect what number I get on the dice, right? So those events are independent, right? Conditional is the opposite. So for example, let's say the probability that it rains tomorrow is 0.4, right? That would affect the probability of me taking an umbrella to work with me, right? So when it's sunny, I might have a 10% chance of taking an umbrella with me. When it's raining, I might have a 90% chance. So that's kind of how conditional probability works. Hope that makes sense. Okay. Perfect. And oh yeah, hello by the way, Starking. Sky King, Starking. So taking two counters out of a bag, that would be conditional, yeah. Okay. For the next question that was submitted, we have DE and F are 3 points on a straight line, such that DE is 3E plus F. You can hear... Damn it. Give me a sec. I didn't realise she was in the room. I didn't realise she was in the room and then she was scratching to get out because she's annoying. She waits until I start streaming and then she demands to go outside. But yeah. She is adorable. She's tiny. Anyways. So DE and F are 3 points on a straight line, such that D to E is 3E plus 6F, and E to F is minus 10.5E minus 21F. Find the ratio DF to DE. A lot of students actually found this really, really tricky. And I don't mean to sound harsh, but if you draw it out, the question answers itself. Okay? So, if I draw this out, I have a point here which is D, a point here which is E, and a point here which is F, right? And there's a line that goes between them. Now D to E is this thing here, 3E plus 6F. And E to F is minus 10.5E minus 21F, right? And it's asking me to work out the length, so the ratio, the length of D to F and D to E. Well, if you think about what D to F is, if I look at my diagram, it's just both of these vectors added together, right? Because it's the total length. So I'm going to add them together. So 3E plus 6, that does say F, God, I can't even read my own handwriting, plus 10.5E minus 21F, right? So that gives me, so 3E minus 10.5E would be minus 7.5E, and 6F minus 21F would give me minus 15F. Is that okay? And I'm comparing this to the length of D to E. So I'm going to write D to E underneath it just so I can compare it more easily. Okay. Hey Abby, how are you? All I'm doing here is working out how many times bigger DF is than DE. You sent the question? Yeah, I've just got it. Perfect. Okay, so all I'm doing is asking myself, what do I times DE by to get to DF? And the way I do that is I say, what do I times 3 by to get to 7.5? And since I'm pretty sure this was a calculator question, but even if it wasn't, you could work it out, is you just do minus 7.5 divided by 3, which gives me minus 2.5, right? Now, if I times 6 by minus 2.5, I get minus 15. So in other words, DF is equal to 2.5 minus 2.5 DE. So as a ratio of DF to DE, you would just write minus 2.5 to 1, right? And if they wanted it in like a specific form, like where it's sorry, I don't know why I put an arrow there. If they wanted it in a specific form, like where it's a whole number, you could just times both sides by 2, and you would just get minus 5 to 2. Either one of those would be correct for that one. So again, I've done the first submitted question here. If you're the one that sent this and you weren't here for the answer, just let me know and I'll go back. And this is the second one here. Okay. Now for the third one, a few people actually sent this in. I've actually done this exact question already as a separate YouTube video, and it's called like the impossible maths question, I think it's called. So the impossible maths. So if you want to see the answer to this question, just so we can save time today, it's a 5 or 7 minute video, something like that. Just go on my channel and look up the impossible maths question. I've done this exact question myself, alright? So yeah, we don't need to do it again, don't worry Mar, we're not going to do it again. Yeah, the equilateral triangles, yeah? Where you just draw a line. So to save time today, if you could, whoever sent, like those of you that sent this in, because a few of you did, just go on the channel and look for it. If it doesn't make sense, then I'll go through it again, like separately with you. Do you teach in a... God, my voice is cracked. Do you teach in a school or only on YouTube? I teach in a school. Not going to say which one, but I teach in a school. This was the last question that I have submitted. By the way, I've seen the 2 that were submitted just now, don't worry. So Amy and Mariam, I have your questions too. This one was sent in, and it's a vector question, obviously, which looks very fun. So, let's get to it. This is a pretty tricky question, and see, I thought the same thing. I was pretty sure I did this question as well, but then I couldn't find it in the live streams. Yeah, oh, Hannah, it was you. Yeah, for some reason I thought it was Amy. So let's go through it anyway, because it's a really good question. And if you have seen this before, then try and think about what the steps are, because I forgot. So that's fun. So we have OAB as a triangle, OPM and APN are straight lines. M is the midpoint of AB, and you get a bunch of information here. Now, what I'm going to say is you have to use all of the information in this way. Have I actually done this? Does anyone remember when I did it? Yeah, thanks, Revan. I've got yours as well. This question is awful. So should I go through it again, or if you guys can tell me when I did it, that would be fantastic, because I can't remember. Should I just redo it? Should I just go through it again? See if I can remember my own work. Okay. Again would be appreciated, yeah? Perfect. Oh, you said you sent it. Right, yeah, fair enough. Either I did it or GCSE Maths tutor. 2 weeks ago? Alright, let's just go through it again. Screw it, right? It's a hard question. It's a 5-mark question. And the one thing I want to say is that you have to use all of the information in the diagram, right? So you have to use the fact that both of these are straight lines. You have to use that these are midpoints, and you have to use that they're ratios. You have to, okay? And the reason why I say that is some people get stuck on vector questions and they don't know where to start. So a good way to start is to just use all the information they've given us. So we want to work out the ratio of ON to NB. So that means we need to work out what ON and NB are, okay? So we need to work both of these out, okay? To work these out, what I'm going to do is say that ON, I'm going to lower the actual pen width as well, because I've got a feeling that's going to be a bit bad, right? For these to be on a straight line, right, and ONB is a straight line, for them to be on a straight line, ON has to be a fraction of OB. Does that make sense? Yeah? Now, I don't know what fraction it is, so I'm going to call it lambda. Lambda is the fraction of OB that ON is, okay? And I already know what OB is. OB is just B. Okay? There's a reason I'm doing this, I promise. Good? Yeah, perfect. Okay. So that means NB, right? If I need NB, would just be equal to 1 minus lambda of OB. Lambda is to do with wavelength, but keep in mind lambda is just a Greek letter. So in physics it means wavelength, sure. But in Greek it's just for like a Y. So you can use it whenever you want. Right, which would be, B minus lambda B. Okay? And the reason why I've done 1 minus lambda is because the rest of OB must be NB, right? Yeah, exactly, Zam. That's a perfect way to think of it, okay? Alright, so I can't do anything more, right? You found it. Damn, I did it that long ago. That's like 4 weeks ago. But we're going to finish. Thank you, Ice Cream. I really appreciate that. I guess we should continue, right? I feel like a lot of stuff's happened since then. A few more people have joined in. So, I can't really continue anymore, right? So what I'm going to do is, I've used this information here. I've used this like bottom piece of information. Let's think of another piece of information we can use. Well, they also tell me that this is a straight line, right? APN. So if APN is a straight line, then that means AP must be some fraction of AN. Okay? Now, do I know what fraction it is? I have no idea. So I'm going to introduce another letter, and the letter we normally use with vectors after lambda is mu. Okay? But you can use any letter you want. I just thought if I used X or something, it would look a bit weird. Okay? So, I know that AP is some fraction of AN, and that fraction is represented by mu, okay? I can actually work out an equation to give me AP though, right? Because AP is just equal to A to M, right? Minus P to M. Right? So I go from A to M, and then I go the opposite direction to P to M. So it's minus P to M. Okay? Now, A to M is, because of this line here, M is the midpoint of AB. A to M is half of AB. Right? So it's a half of AB. And AB is equal to minus A plus B. So it's a half of minus A plus B. So far so good? Hope so. Okay. Now, how can I work out PM? Well, it tells me that OP to PM is 2/3, right? Which means PM is just equal to 2 over 5, 2/5 of OM. Okay? So 2/5 of OM. It's 2/5 of this total line here. Okay? So, that is 2/5. And to go from O to M, I go from O to A, and then I do A to M again. Okay? So that's A plus half of, minus a half A. So I'm actually going to change that to a minus. So if I simplify that, that would be okay? Because again, we're doing AM again, which was just a half minus A plus B, so I've just expanded that quickly. So far, so good? I promise you we're almost at the end. This might look like a bunch of nonsense at the moment, and I wouldn't blame you. Okay. So, yeah, let's keep going. So, we can now substitute this all in, right? So AM, how'd you get good at vectors? A lot of practice. On the bright side, a lot of questions are very similar. Okay, so you use similar techniques every single time, which makes life slightly easier for us. So, AM is, where did I write AM? It was a half of AB, so it's going to be a half A minus B, so a half A, sorry, minus a half A plus a half B minus 2/5 half A plus a half B. That should be yeah, fine. So if I simplify this now, I'm going to start by expanding the brackets. So minus 2/5 times a half, I hope you can see that that's just going to be minus 1/5 A. And that would be minus 1/5 B. Okay? Well, it's funny you should say, that is a really good idea, by the way. I've actually done that before. So one of my previous live streams, I actually went through a predicted paper. I made a predicted paper for this year's paper 1. I've actually created one myself. And I was actually going to re-record it and upload it again, where I go through the whole of what I think paper 1 will be this year. Because what I did is I have this huge spreadsheet of every question that's ever come up, and I worked out roughly what the paper should look like this year. So I can 100% do that. Yeah. So minus a half minus a fifth would give me minus 7/10. Okay? Where can you find that paper? Well, if I'm going to be honest with you, the only place I could have put it was a site that I had to sell the paper on. But I'm just going to do... It's not a 3-hour video, so it's not only for Edexcel either. So I've got one for AQA and one for Edexcel. Well, I've actually got more than that. I've actually got quite a few. I've got it for paper 1, 2 and 3, and I've got it for AQA and Edexcel, and I've actually got it for 3 copies. What is a predicted paper? So it's a predicted paper because it's what I think this year's paper will look like. For AQA, and I've got one for Edexcel, and I've also got it for paper 1, 2 and 3, and all of that. So I actually had it on a website, but the thing is, the website charged me, so I had to charge people to download the thing. How much for the spreadsheet? Yeah, so what I was actually thinking, Evie, is instead of selling it, I might just give it away. All I need to do is make it look a bit nicer and then just put it in a link to a video or something. Yeah, but I don't really want to charge you guys. I think... Yeah, exactly. So I was going to do a walkthrough for it. I actually have a walkthrough already done. But the thing is, you have to pay to see it. So I want to make a free version. Can you email it to me? Yeah. So I don't want to make you guys pay. So instead, I might just give it away for free. If I upload it as a video, then obviously if you guys watch it, then it helps me. So that's good enough for me. Because I did have it for sale, but I had to sell it because I had to pay for the website. So it's to offset it. But I'm thinking of just changing it. Yeah, you've got about 4 weeks left. I think it's the 16th of May is your first one, right? I think. I should definitely know that, but I don't. "31 days, yeah." Oh yeah, I mean I'm talking specifically for the first exams next Monday. Biology. Yeah. Oh really? Yeah, sure you can, Abby, absolutely. I should actually start doing these questions a bit faster because a lot of you have sent in questions and I haven't done them yet. So in the interest of time, then I'll just work out what AN is. Now, AN, A to N, is going to be minus A plus O to N, right? Where can you send a question? That's a good point. It's mitchell.educatio. I'll send it again because I think there's some new people. The channel's kind of picking up speed a bit. So it's minus A plus O to N. And I wrote O to N up here as lambda B. So I'm going to write plus lambda B. Okay? And you're very welcome. So, I have 2 equations for AN now, right? Or for AP. I have this equation here, minus 7/10A, blah, 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 for AP. And I also have an equation for AN. What's the difference between Edexcel GCSE and iGCSE? iGCSE is specifically for, well, it tends to be for international candidates, so people in other countries. And, yeah, so for example, if there's IGCSEs for other subjects too, they don't have coursework, for example, because obviously you can't do coursework in another, like from another country, really. And that equals mu times minus a plus lambda b. So if I expand that quickly, we have minus 7 over 10a plus 3 over 10b equals minus mu a plus mu lambda b. How many formulas do you need to remember? Honestly, quite a lot. Which is why I recommend practicing so much, because you'll just know them off the top of your head. I don't know the total number, but there's a lot of stuff you need to remember for A-level maths. Like, are there different topics? So the last time I taught IGCSE was a long time ago. I'm pretty sure it's mostly the same. A-level maths, not really. You do get a formula sheet, but it's not for all of the formulas. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to compare the A's and B's, right? Because they should be equal. So if I look at the A's, everything in front of the A's, I have minus 7 over 10 on this side and minus mu on the other side, which means mu must be 7 over 10. Close to 100, 1k subs, I know, right? It's very exciting. I can't believe how much it increased by. And if I look at B, I have 3 over 10 on this side, and I have mu lambda on this side. But I know that mu is 7 over 10. So I can actually cancel out the 10s, which means lambda is 3/7. Okay? Just by dividing that over here. So many people really don't want to fail maths. I mean, good. You shouldn't want to fail it. So what I'm going to say here is 3/7, right? So that means ON is 3/7 of OB. So if I look at the actual final answer over here, ON is 3/7 of OB, which means ON to NB, because remember we have 3/7, is 3 to 4. Okay? 3 to 4. I can't remember who sent in that question. You want a 9? Lots of people depend on you. I know there's a lot of weight on you. This is cool. I wish that my teacher had a YouTube channel. Could I summarize how I answer the question? Absolutely. So, if I scroll out a little bit, it might help you see roughly what's happening. Yes, so the iteration question's on the right, Joseph. Finally got a vector question right. Good. Absolute king stuff. Okay, we have about... yeah, just so I don't starve to death. I need that 7, but I want the 8. Good. Aim high, hit low. That's the good way to do it. So how do I do the question? Okay. So I looked at the information I had, right? And the thing that I want, right, is ON to NB. So I decided to write an equation for ON and OB. Okay? So basically school policy is I'm not allowed to tell people I have a YouTube channel. But a couple of students have told me that they found it and that they said it was cool. And I was like, I hope so. I don't know if it's cool, but you know. So I think only 2 have come up to me so far and said that. So yeah. I want ON and NB. So I wrote an equation for ON and NB. Now because I don't know what fraction of OB ON is, I just wrote lambda as like a placeholder. I got stuck here. There's nothing more I can do. So I used some of the other information. I used the fact that APN is a straight line. And I did that because it's the only line that has N on it. Which, if you look in the answer, I need, right? So again, I wrote another equation to work out AP. After kind of writing out the equation, I wanted to get it so that I have lambda in this equation as well. Because that way I can use simultaneous equations. So that was the whole process. So I found an equation for AP where I went around the back. So I went A to O and then O to P. And then I found an equation for A to N, which is just going straight down here and right there. And those two things should be equal because AP is just a fraction of AN. hope that's okay. I'm going to quickly go through an iteration question. It was a pretty tricky one that was sent in. And then we're going to go through the questions that have been emailed in order. I think we have about 6 at least. No, there's a lot more than that. Okay. So these 2 questions were in a textbook. I hadn't actually seen these questions before, so that was quite interesting for me. Oh, for crying out loud. I love OneNote so much. It's so useful. Okay. So, the reason why I was surprised is because these are fairly old style questions. Okay? I haven't seen this style of question in quite a while. But on the spec it says you need to be able to do iteration, so it doesn't really say anything more than that. So, anyways. If I do this top one, you'll actually be able to see how to do the bottom one very easily. So, first of all, it gives us an equation here, which is x cubed plus 3x squared minus 5. You know, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I think it's a CGP book. Equals 0. And for part A, it says show that there's a solution between 1 and 1.5. So how would you do that? Well, if you want to show that there's a solution, right, think about it. I'm looking for equals 0, okay? What you do is you sub in both of those values. So if I sub in 1, what do I get? Well, I get 1 cubed plus 3 plus 1 squared minus 5. So 1 plus 3, which is 4, minus 5, which is minus 1. Okay? Then when I sub in x is 1.5, look what happens, okay? So again, do the same thing. Yeah, I haven't seen this style of question in a very long time. Like when I did GCSEs. I'm going to use a calculator for this one, just because, you know, laziness and everything. Plus 3 times 1.5 squared. And you get 5.125. Okay? Now, the good thing about this type of question is the answers are always the same. Okay? You always sub in both of the numbers and then you write this sentence. By the way, this is an A-level style question as well. So this can come up in A-level as well. Okay, so this is actually the same answer you'd give in an A-level question. You write this exact same thing. So you sub in both values and then you say this. Okay, now I'm going to explain why. Why there's always a sign change? Yeah, so I'm going to explain why, right? I'm going to explain it in 2 ways. First of all, if I'm looking for where this equation equals 0, right, and I get a negative number and then a positive number, between that must be 0, right? It must be. The other way to think of it is if I sketch this graph out, okay? Yeah, those questions are pretty nice. I'm looking for where it equals 0, where it's over here, right? Before the answer, it's negative, yeah? And after the answer, it's positive. So between the negative and positive, it must equal 0. That's why when you get a change in sign, it implies that there's an answer for when it equals 0. Does that make sense? I hope so. Sorry, I meant will there always be a sign change? Oh, sorry. There will always be a sign change, yeah. If it says show that there's a solution, there has to be a sign change. Okay? So if there's a solution, there has to be a sign change. So if it says show there's a solution, it must be. This was 2A. My bad, that was unclear. Okay? Perfect. For part B, this is where things get a bit more interesting, okay? The formula, this hideous thing, can be used to solve this. Find the solution to 5 decimal places. So normally in questions, they will just say find x1, 2 and 3, right? That's all they'll say. In A level, and in this question, they ask you to find it to 5 decimal places. So, they give you a good hint here, by the way. So the way that we do iteration is we start with the beginning number, which is 1, press equals, and now my answer button just says equals, right? And then I'm going to type this exact formula, except wherever I see xn, I'm just putting ans, right? So ans minus ans cubed plus 3 ans squared minus 5 over 3 ans squared plus 6 ans. Okay? Now, when I press equals, it gives me a number. If I press equals again, it gives me another number. Right? What you want to do is keep going until the first 5 decimal places don't change when you round it up. So you want to keep going until the number, when you round it to 5 decimal places, won't change. So if you notice, every time I press equals, right, can you see that less of the numbers change? Oh, never mind. It stopped changing already. But less of the number was changing over time, right? Every time I pressed equals, less of it was changing. So now, if you look, it's not changing even though I'm pressing equals. No, that's not right. I mean, yeah, it's a common method. It's the method that I would use. So rounding this to 5 decimal places is 1.00380. That's it. So in this case, it just stopped changing. But you basically go until the first 5 decimal places won't change anymore when you round it. But if you keep going until it just doesn't change, that's fine as well. Okay. So essentially, the reason why it just stopped is because calculators don't go infinitely long, right? So basically, after the 3, the number's still changing. But my calculator's just rounded it to this many decimal places, right? So when you put in pi, for example, right? That's not all of pi. It rounds it to a certain number of decimal places. Okay. Do you want me to go through this one as well? This question as well? Or has this kind of helped out? Okay. Can I do 3b? Okay. Yeah, sure, that's fine. So 3b, once again, so to 3 significant figures this time, okay? So, it says start with 1.5, so we're going to do 1.5 equals, so now it's the ANS button. Then we're going to type in this equation. Actually, I'll make my calculator a bit bigger just to... Whoops. That was way too big. For crying out loud. There we are. Hello. There we are. 4 ANS minus 10 over ANS minus 3. Press equals. And what you're doing is you're looking for when the first 3 significant figures won't change when you round it. So if I press equals again, remember it's 1.63 at the moment. Now it's 1.59, so it's changed, right? Now it's 1.61, 1.60, 1.60. So can you see, now if I keep pressing equals, the first 3 significant figures aren't changing, are they? Right? So the answer would just be 1.60 to 3 significant figures. Exactly, Sam. Perfect. Why do calculators round and not truncate? You know what? You might be right. They actually might truncate. It truncates, yeah. Never mind. You're 100% correct. Well done, Ice Cream. It actually truncates, not rounds. Well played. Okay. So now we should probably go through. We're not gonna finish paper 3 at this point, but that's fine. We'll just make it like a user submitted, like a fan submitted questions. Yeah, so it does round. Interesting. See, that's why I said it rounds at Ice Cream, but when I googled it, it says it truncates. You know what? Let's just leave it. Okay, so I've got 2 questions here. By the way, if we don't get through them today, interesting, we'll just go through them next week as well. Yeah, that's why I said that they round, but yeah. Wait. Okay. You're welcome, Joseph. I'm really glad it helped. Can I ask who sent this in? It was Amy. I need to quickly go somewhere. Yeah, I'll do it last. Don't worry then. Okay, so I'm not sure what part A was, but I'm going to assume it's not relevant to the question. I hope. We need to show that BCD is a straight line. So the way to do this is to work out what BC is and work out what BD is and show that they're scale multiples of each other, okay? So just like in the previous question, BC should be able to be written as lambda BD, where lambda is some fraction of BD, okay? So let's work out what BC is. Oh, sorry, it tells me what it is. My bad. It tells me it's a straight line. So yeah, it should be written, there should be a scale multiple, okay? So BC is just equal to KA plus 3B. Okay, cool. And then BD is equal to KA plus okay, so like that. Good. And from here we know that, so the best thing to do is, oh god, so K plus 6 A is completing the square calculator. Not always. They can ask you to do it on non-calculator. So actually, this is something that's quite important. Every single topic can come up on any paper, okay? So there are no calculator topics, there's no non-calculator topics, okay? So just keep that in mind. They might tend to show up in one place or another, but that doesn't mean they actually are, okay? Cool. And that doesn't help, that does help us a bit. Yeah, so just keep that in mind. They can come up with, like, any time. And it might be good to work out another equation for BD. Yep. So we have at the moment BC is equal to lambda BD, and we know what all of these are. So we can say, equate those two. We can say that KA plus 3B equals lambda times all of this. So I'm going to write that out quickly. So lambda times K plus 6A plus 7.5 lambda B. Okay? This is actually very similar to the question we did just now, earlier. If you compare A's, you get K equals lambda K plus 6. There's not really much I can do with that at the moment. So I'm now going to compare B's You can, Revan. You can use whatever one you want. The reason why I don't use X is because X is sometimes used in vector questions themselves. So, yeah. If you want, you can use another letter. You can use P or something like that if you want to. And if I compare B, I have 3 equals 7.5 lambda. Which means lambda is equal to 3 over 7.5. Which is 6 over 15. Which is 2 over 5. Okay. So subbing that into this equation now, we have K is equal to 2/5 K plus 6. Expand the brackets. K is equal to 2/5 of K plus 12 over 5. So just because I don't want to use a calculator, if I times the whole thing by 5, I get 5K equals 2K plus 12. Subtract 2K from both sides, we get 3K is equal to 12, which means K is equal to 4. Okay. Question 9, okay. So the next question I'm going to take a screenshot of, so question 9. For every topic, are there going to be multiple questions or just one or two? There's probably going to be a couple, but it depends, right? Like, there has to be a certain percentage of marks for all of them. So, what I mean by that is, let's say you have a trig question that's 2 marks. They might need to have 10 marks of trig in across all 3 papers, but you might just get like 1 6-marker instead, you know? So, it kind of depends. Compared to A-level, are these questions even hard? Okay, I'm going to be real with you. You know this question up here? Right, that's whoops. This question here. This question so this was like from like last year or the year before. I was teaching some A-level physics, and these guys did maths and further maths. They were hardcore, applying to imperial, things like that. They didn't even know where to start with this question. So I will say that GCSE tends to do really weird things, okay? Like, they tend to give you really strange questions that are hard to solve. So, like, overall, the GCSE Maths paper is probably easier, but they have hard stuff in there, which even A-level people can't do. You sent me a question just now? Perfect, I'll go through it in a second. Yeah, A-level, in my opinion, A-level is more, like, realistic. You know, like, they actually ask you questions based on what you've learnt. With GCSE, they like to screw you over. Okay, so let's go with this. A company orders the numbers of bottles from factory. 8 machines could make the bottles in 5 days. All the machines work at the same rate. For 2 days, only 4 machines are used to make the bottles. Okay, so the way I do this is a proportionality question. But there's another way that you can do this, which I quite prefer. So, it tells me that 8 machines can make all the bottles in 5 days, right? So I'm going to do 8 times 5, which is 40. I'm going to call this work. Okay, so 40 work needs to be done. Okay? So, Ethan, I think yeah, Ethan, it normally is. It's fine. Would you ever need to use A-level maths in real life? It depends on what you want to do. Not really, to be honest. Why do I time? So yeah, that's a good question, Mar. So if it takes 8 machines 5 days to make bottles, and I times that, that's kind of like the total amount of work that needs to be done, right? The reason why I'm doing it this way is because I find it to be a bit easier than doing the proportionality way. Especially for this question. Okay? So, 8 machines, 5 days, means I'll have to do 40 pieces of work in total, okay? So yeah, so Zam, it's not that kind of proportionality, because if you look, 2 days, only 4 machines are used. Third day, only this, you know? Yeah, it's quite tricky for this question. That's why I wouldn't do it, okay? Now it says for 2 days, only 2 machines are used to make bottles, right? So if I do 2 times 4, that means 8 pieces of work were done, right? Which means there's now 32 pieces of work left. 40 minus 8. And then for the third day, all 8 machines are used. So that's another 1 times 8. So that's another 8 pieces of work. So now there's only 24 units of work left. Is it pointless taking A-level maths for fun? I wouldn't take it for fun. I mean, look, here's how you choose your A-levels. Stuff you need, stuff that will open doors for you, so maths is pretty good, and then for fun. That's my order that I do it in. So what do I need? What would be useful? What's for fun? Because on the third day, that's only 1 day, right? All 8 machines were used. Okay? So there's only 1 day of it being worked. Hey Hybrid, how are you? So that's why we've done 1 times 8. So, I have 24 work left to be done. How many days will it take if all of the machines are being used? Well, that's going to be 24 divided by 8, which is 3 more days. Okay? Because they do 8 pieces of work per day. Yeah. So there's 24 pieces of work left. There's 8 machines. So you do 24 divided by 8, that'll give you 3 days. Now the total is just going to be 2 days here, plus the 1 day here, plus 3 days from here, which gives me 6 days. That's a good question. It is a 3-mark question. You're very welcome. Do you even get marked for less workings? The working for this question is quite tricky, that's the thing, to actually grade. Is that this bit, Hannah? This bit, Hannah? Or literally the last bit is in the total? Yeah, the total is... I'm assuming that's what you meant. Can you see that it takes 2 days here, then another day, and then we have 3 more days from this part over here. So in total... Oh, it is the previous bit here. Is this a logic question? Kind of, yeah. The 3 days part, yeah. Yeah, essentially, Zam, yeah. So, if you look, originally I have 40 pieces of work that need doing. I've taken away 8 and another 8. That leaves me with 24. Now, because I have 8 machines that can do 1 work each, if I do 24 divided by 8, that gives me how many days how many days it will take them to do it. Okay? So that gives me the number of days it takes me to do that work with 8 machines. Yeah. So it says from the 3rd day. So you don't need to, it's not an assumption, it actually tells you. Okay. So I think I want to die soon, so let's just do a couple more questions. What grade? Ooh, that's a good question. It's either 6 or 7. I think it's grade 6 or 7. Yeah. Okay. What I'll do is... Okay. I think I'm going to go through one more question and then we'll continue this next week. I think that'd be best. Just in the interest of time. So I'll answer this one from Abby and then we'll continue next week. Because you guys have sent a lot of questions. There's another like 6 or so questions, but I really can't commit to doing all of that. So yeah, we can just do this question, okay? So, rectangular field is 15 meters longer than it is wide, and the area is 800 square meters. Work out the length. So all you do here is... So 15 meters longer. So since we don't know what the length or the width is, I'm just going to say x is the width and x plus 15 is the length. Okay? And it tells me that this is 800 square meters. Now how do I work out area? Well, I times the length and the width together. So we have x times x plus 15 equals 800. I'm glad you think so. So that gives me x squared plus 15x equals 800. Okay? So, what you want to do here is, because we can't solve it straight away, this is a quadratic. Why don't you use 2 separate letters, e.g. x? That's a very good question. So, if I did that, so let's do like a little demonstration, right? Then I'll be left with xy equals 800. And the problem is you can't solve this because there's 2 different letters, there's 2 variables. And it also means that I don't use this information here, that it's 15 meters longer than it is wide. Okay? And remember, in maths questions, you have to use all of the information. So from there, I would have to say that, well, since y is 15 meters longer than x, so I'll do that. Okay? So that's why, if that makes sense, Mar. Not quite, crazy friend. Not quite. Because... Oh, that's it. Fair enough. From here, to solve a quadratic, you need to make it equal 0. So you need to move everything to one side. So you minus 800 from both sides. And you get x squared plus 15x. It's 800. And then you need to factorize or use the quadratic formula. I'm going to use the quadratic formula because I don't really fancy factorizing this. That looks a bit tedious. So if I use the quadratic formula, which I'll write it out for you, it'll be minus b plus or minus blah blah. So minus 15 plus minus the square root of 15 squared minus 4ac. Yeah, it should be quadratic. Well, to be honest, I don't know if you can factor. It doesn't look like you can factorize it, but you might be able to. Right. So yeah, and then you would just use the quadratic formula. In general, it's better to use the quadratic formula anyway because, like, you don't have to guess, so to speak. Yeah, you couldn't factorize that. Okay, so it's either 21.8 or... Yeah, exactly. That's what I get for not reading the question. And then minus, you get negative 36.8. So, if I have a look, which one of these must x be? Because there's only one length, right? So, since there's only one answer, you have to pick one of these. A length cannot be negative, perfect hybrid, which means the answer is 21.8. There you go. Perfect. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Really good job. Okay. So I think we'll call it there for today. But, again, we will continue this next week. So if you have more questions, feel free to email them in. Thank you very much, Ma. I really appreciate that. I might respond during the week and just send you the answers. But we will keep going through more of these. And we'll go through my predicted paper as well. I'll upload that video instead. You're very welcome. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I'll send it and I'll upload the video so you guys have both. And yeah, don't forget you can join the Discord. Yeah, anyways. So yeah, you two have great weeks, all of you. Goodbye. Goodbye.